everybody. It's Georgia Rose from Zencuda. And it must be Monday at 7 o'clock because you guys are all in the soul space. And I am actually just trying to send something to Bobby that I want to use on tonight's show because there's nothing like waiting to the last minute to get your shit together. Right? I'm human. I know you all thought I was an angel. Wait, let me brush my wings off, fluff them up a little bit. But no, I'm actually perfectly human, and I sometimes fly around by the seat of my pants and do things last minute. But you know what? Most of the time it works for me, so I'm not so apologetic about it. I am me, got to be me. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight on the show, about being who we authentically are a little bit. We're going to talk about some spiritual awakenings. And of course, don't get depressed. I'm going to do cards for you guys, and I'm going to do some astrology and all that. So first thing I have to do is get my butt on Facebook and start looking at my own show and start sharing it. Sorry, I had to email something. So where am I here? Okay, I got to go on to Strong Island Television to see my own show. Here I am. Ooh, I already have some comments. Well, who's out there tonight? Let's see. I've got Janine. Hey, Janine, my boo. I got Monica and Anne and Sarah, of course. Sarah's like my most loyal fan. So I am going to share this show right now on all of my places. The Warrior Circle, I'm going to share it. I'm going to share it on Zencuda Astrology. I have so many places where I am just going to share this show. And of course, I'm going to share the show on my very own page too. Did that? Okay. So I think I'm a lot of different places. So love to hear from you guys tonight. Call in anytime on the show. We're being really informal. And hopefully we can get some interesting topics going. I'm going to talk a little bit tonight, like I said, about the astrology, but I also want to talk about spiritual awakenings, because I know that that's been a big topic of late. I know a lot of us have actually been thinking we are having spiritual awakenings, or thinking that maybe our spiritual awakenings are actually revelations or new beginnings and all that stuff. So I am going to clear up all that stuff for you guys so that you will know exactly what a spiritual awakening is by the end of this show. Let me tell you. Okay. So first, I want to go into the astrology. How does that sound? And if anybody wants a reading tonight, you can call on the show once we have the number up on the screen. So really busy week astrologically. Today, Venus moved into Aries. And Venus in Aries is a big change. You're going to feel a big energy shift, because Venus in Aries is actually, you know, when Venus was in Pisces, we were all emotional and warm and fuzzy and, you know, like a little pair of pink fuzzy slippers and bunny pajamas. That's kind of Venus in Pisces. It wants all the creature comforts, and it wants to connect and to be emotional and watery. But now that Venus, the planet of love and attraction, has moved into Aries, it's kind of on fire a little bit. Aries is a fire sign, and when the planet of love is in Aries, you can expect the unexpected in your love life, because sometimes Aries can combust, right? It can be very spontaneous and kind of dramatic as well. If any of you have an Aries in your life that is a lover or a partner, I got to say, sometimes they can be a little hard to handle, right? So one of my astrology teachers was saying that Venus in Pisces is like the warm, fuzzy sweater, and Venus in Aries is like the red leather costume. So that's kind of gives you an idea what the energy is like. So Venus in Aries is a lot more erotic. It's more fiery, but it's not fooling around. It's not really heavily into that, you know, getting somebody ready to do something, you know, being diplomatic. No, Venus in Aries just wants to get it done. And we also have today a half square between Mars and Pluto. That is a disruptive energy, I'm sorry to say, that's going to kind of be around this week. That'll be, you know, sudden outbursts, some conflicts. Tomorrow, Jupiter sextiles Pluto. So Pluto's playing a lot with us this week. You're going to feel the energy the next few days is kind of shining a light and revealing dark things that maybe you thought were resolved, and they're going to come back up a little bit. But don't worry so much about it, because those disruptions actually come to heal, to actually get us to a place where we can really, you know, resolve them once and for all. And then on the 4th, we have Mars in Pisces, sextiling Uranus. I know that sounds like Chinese to some of you, but basically what that means is that we have some more exciting disruptions. So that could be good, could be bad. I personally think with Uranus and Taurus, we're going to hear a lot of disruptions about the financial markets and the stock markets, coin, decentralizing banking and centralizing banking. That war will go on. And I just really feel like it's going to be some announcements maybe this week, some things that'll be happening along the financial climate of the country. I know we all got our bank statements and our 401 statements at the end of the week, and probably not looking so great right now, but it'll come back. Also, the sun aligns with that Uranian energy. We talk about Uranus on the show a lot, and Uranus is that sudden, quick change. Uranus is the lightning in the room. You've heard me describe it. Sometimes we fear it, and it can be a little bit violent, but at the same time, if we didn't have that quick lightning and illumination, we wouldn't know where everything was. So Uranus really serves a purpose in our lives quite a bit. Uranus in Taurus is those disruptions in financial markets and also food supplies. So be ready for, maybe hearing some more things about the supply chain, banking, stock market, etc. When the sun aligns with Uranus and really shines a light on those disruptions, and that's May 5th. So from May 2nd to May 5th, it's going to be a little bit disruptive energy. But we also have Mercury getting ready for her retrograde on the 10th. In Gemini, which is its home. Mercury loves to be in Gemini. It's a planet of communication. Gemini is complete communication. So that's going to give us the energy to speak a little bit easier, more clever, more flirtatious, but it is slowing down, so it's more powerful, that Mercury energy. So it may, have our speech come in hot bursts. So just know that. And if you're feeling that coming on, try to breathe. Don't say anything you don't want to say. And then as we go through the week and towards Mother's Day, which is Sunday, we have the Sun sextile Mars, which actually gives us a great energy and ease, a flow, and we're going to see some progress with some of the disruptions that we had earlier in the week. So it's going to be, a week that starts out a little disruptive, but it's going to end pretty well for all of us, I think, and we should have a really, really nice, pretty Mother's Day. I just want to say a couple of things about the Mercury retrograde coming up on the 10th. This will be a classic Mercury retrograde, especially with communication, because in Gemini, the sign of communication. So absolutely back up your datas, put things on flash drives, make sure that you have everything ready to go in case your computer crashes, that you have it in a safe place. Also, because we have that Taurus energy with Mars, sextiling Mars, I would say back up your bank statements, back up and make sure that you have, everything printed out that you need in a safe place in case the internet goes down for you and things like that. So that's how I'm feeling about the Mercury retrogrades and the week ahead. So I would say we probably have a pretty good week coming up, but it's going to be a little bit up and down in the beginning. But I think this weekend coming in will be a nice energy. I'd love to hear how all of you feel about this particular energy and what you're thinking, what's going on in your lives and what you're seeing and how the energy has been affecting you. I would love to hear about how the eclipse has been affecting all of you. That would be really interesting. I know we had quite a weekend with the eclipses coming in, so love to hear about that from you. I'm going to read the comments, go back to the show now, and let's see. Oh, Cindy Seville's on here. Cindy has a show also on Strong Island. Check that out. Joanna Meyer, your birthday's May 10th, so you have a Mercury retrograde on your birthday. I think we talked about that. I actually have Mercury retrograde in my chart and at my birth chart. So if you're born with a Mercury retrograde, you oftentimes don't feel it as much. So, hey, Bobby, did you get the video I Dropboxed you? Oh, okay. Okay. Can you Facebook message it to me? Yeah, let me try that. I have a video that I want to play for you guys tonight, so just trying to get it over to Bob. So I'm going to do that now. Do some Facebook messaging. See you guys get the behind-the-scenes stuff tonight. How do you like that? Gotta love a live show, guys. Nope. not doing that. So if anybody wants to call on the show, numbers on the screen, 516-945-9099. Almost forgot it. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about spiritual awakening tonight, and that was actually the video that I had for you, but I don't know if we're going to be able to play it. I'll still try a little bit, just looking for the link that I sent. Okay, copy that link. I really need an intern. If anybody knows anybody who wants to work for free this summer, just send them my way, okay, babe? Okay, here we go, Bobby. There's your link. Okay, now I can get down to business and do my show again. How's that? So, wanted to talk a little bit about spiritual awakening tonight. And one of the things that I hear a lot right now in media is everybody's having a spiritual awakening. The planet is awakening. Well, the planet might be awakening, but I don't think everyone's having a spiritual awakening. And I wanted to talk a little bit about exactly what a spiritual awakening is. And that was actually what our video was about. And so a lot of times when we think we're having a spiritual awakening, we're actually having either a revelation or an epiphany. So I'm going to explain to you guys a little bit about what the difference is, and then we're going to run the video if Bobby gets it. So spiritual awakening is not something that happens overnight. It's not like when you wake up and, oh, I saw an angel, or, oh, I suddenly, saw something or heard something, or something happened that completely changed my life. That's not a spiritual awakening. A spiritual awakening is something that happens over the course of many years, a long time period, and it is the unraveling of everything in your life. A spiritual awakening brings you down to the ashes of your life. When we see an apparition or an angel, or you suddenly have a psychic experience, or you hear something psychically, that's a revelation. That is spirit coming to you to give you an idea, a new perception, a new way of doing something. So a lot of times people confuse a spiritual awakening with a revelation, because both will result in you seeking new things, seeking a way to perceive things differently, seeking a difference in your life, etc. So a typical spiritual awakening is someone who loses a relationship, loses a job, maybe gets sick, etc. And in the process, the ego is crumbling. Your ego is completely destroyed. You are completely humbled to the point where you are reduced to the ashes. And that's where we get the expression of the phoenix rising from the ashes. It's because we're actually brought down to that. We're actually lose our identity through the ego. So as things are crumbling in your life and everything's falling apart, your ego is disintegrating. Who you thought you were is now not who you are. When this happened to me and I had my spiritual awakening, I lost success in my career. I lost my main relationship in my life. I lost my parents, died. I became very sick with cancer. So everything that I thought I was, and every symbolism and illusion in my life of success, of course, I didn't know they were illusions then, just completely fell to the ground. And I kept getting hammered and hammered and hammered until eventually I fell to the ground and was awakened to a new way of life, started a whole new me, became a new person. That's a spiritual awakening, okay? The planet being awakened by energy now is more or less people finding new perceptions, things being inspiring to them that are maybe making them think again, like the COVID dilemma that we were in. But a real spiritual awakening is something that takes a very long time and reduces you to everything in your life. I think most people have revelations. Spiritual awakenings are pretty rare. They're usually people are chosen to undergo things like this because afterwards they become a very highly vibrational person who functions in love. Everything around you becomes more loving. I can remember when I was, really in the dark nights of the soul and all these horrible things were happening to me. And I was, even physically sick. And yet I felt so much love in my life. That's a spiritual awakening. People who have things all crumbling and all these obstacles in life and they're bitter and angry and complaining and That's not a spiritual awakening. So Bobby has the video. I'm going to run the video. This is a video I did a few years ago. It's about, I'd say 9 minutes or so, but it really explains the spiritual awakening process. And then when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the symptoms that you might be having physically when you're having revelations, or you're even just being ascended to a higher vibration. And then we'll go to cards. So stay tuned. And here's the video that I made about spiritual awakenings. Is a spiritual awakening, because there's so many things written about and talked about on the internet and on media about spiritual awakening. And it seems like, you know, you get a pain in your left toe and there's somebody out there saying you have a pain in your left toe because you're processing energy, right? And it gets to be a little bit too much sometimes. So I want to go back into what I learned philosophically through my own experience and through my own masters that I've worked with, both here on this earth and of course spiritually. A spiritual awakening is actually something very, very rare. Many people think they're having a spiritual awakening, and they may be having an epiphany or a realization or a revelation of some kind, or just an energetic shift. And we seem to refer to everything these days as an awakening, and in the awakening process. And yes, we could be in an awakening process and being awakened to certain habits of ours or energy, etc., etc. But a true spiritual awakening is something that is very rare, is years in a process, and it really is a very painful and very deep, deep, deep thing to go through. I did have a spiritual awakening in my life. I know this because of the depth of it, and because of the length of time, and because of what happened. And so I'm going to go into the symptoms of spiritual awakening, but first I want to really talk about exactly what this is, because I think that it's kind of been coined in media to be something that it's really not. So a spiritual awakening is a very, very deep, deep soul experience. It's an experience that usually brings you to a completely new place in your life where you are completely reinvented in a very short period of time. But that period of the awakening goes on for years and years. In my own life, this happened to me in 2011, was the major spiritual awakening of my life, where everything in my life that I knew to be my identity in my life completely collapsed. People that I had in my family, people that I loved, people who were close to me, tremendous amount of loss through death, through abandonment, through egregious things that happened. And it was completely out of my control. It was nothing I did or I put in motion, so to speak, in the three-dimensional world. Financial losses, business losses, career loss, every single thing that I had in my life was completely stripped away within a year to 18-month period. I get nervous to even just still talk about that time. It was, I was ill, I had cancer, everything that could have been my security, my success, or development in my life up until that point was completely and utterly stripped away to leave ashes. And that's usually what happens during a spiritual awakening process. Some people think a spiritual awakening is, oh, I saw God or I saw angels. That would be a revelation. That would be a realization or an epiphany or an experience. But a spiritual awakening is when you are stripped down to nothing, no identity. Everything in your life as you know it has no balance or bearing of what had gone before. And you have to recreate your life from ashes. And that's truly a collapse of the ego. It's a total stripping away, and you're reduced to having no identity at all and must recreate yourself from the ashes. And, you know, we always talk about the phoenix rising from the ashes. That is a spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakenings are very rare. Usually those things that happen to us in that kind of situations are usually things that we've done, or situations that come because of things that we have missed, not taken care of, or not done, or, you know, done something that becomes, this picture is just bothering me tonight. I don't know why. We can actually move it over here. Or something that we've done or haven't done in our life, and it causes that reaction. But when it comes because of a spiritual awakening, we literally are just standing in the space like, what? It just happened. Because the universe really just does it to us, for us, to give us a gift in the end. But we don't know that while it's happening. So in my own spiritual awakening, that is what happened. And within that awakening, we have epiphanies and realizations and revelations, which I'll go into the differences in a few minutes. The spiritual awakening occurs for one reason, and that reason is to free our soul. We are awakened to love, even though we don't really know it at the time because we're in tragedy and we're in all these things happening. But when you have those things happening as deeply hard as they are to go through, you start to shift your energy, and all of a sudden you feel unbelievable love. And all these things are happening around you, and your life is disintegrating and your ego is collapsing. And yet you feel unbelievable love, and you feel calm, and you feel peace at times. And you know something is deeply changing within a soul that maybe has not before awakened. And that's a true spiritual awakening. And usually within that collapse of your life, you will have spiritual epiphanies and revelations and realizations and experiences that keep moving you forward. A spiritual awakening is something you can't ignore. It's a life destiny. It is something the universe comes and brings to you, and you have no control over it. You just have to ride the wave and be within the energy. What a spiritual awakening really wants from you is for you to review your life and create space to have the awakening in. So it's not uncommon for people who are really truly in a spiritual awakening to lose their job, because you are supposed to just do nothing but create space for this awakening. And of course that's where the financial losses come in, and et cetera, et cetera. So all of this happens to free your soul and bring you to a space where you see God in everything. And you must be reduced to nothing in order to have that epiphany and revelation. And that's a true spiritual awakening. A spiritual epiphany is something that happens that changes your perception. A spiritual epiphany is something that happens because you suddenly see a truth that you know to be real, you know to be true, and you change something because of it. An example of an epiphany would be maybe you just have some really bad behavior and you like to gossip. And then one day you realize that you said something to really hurt someone. And in that epiphany, you now start to change your behavior. A spiritual realization is seeing that behavior and starting to maneuver away from it and change it. So first we'll have an epiphany, and then we'll get a realization about how this behavior or this thing, this now we see truth, affects others around us. And then that usually leads us to a revelation where we change the behavior. So, an example of that would again be, okay, maybe you're into gossip and you find yourself, around the water cooler every day gossiping. And then all of a sudden one day you have a realization about what that really does to your own energy field and what that does to others. And you start to stop it and change the behavior, and you move away from those people that you do that with. That's a spiritual realization, which leads to the revelation of a shift. The revelation part of that is that it's like the realization, but it's deeper. In the revelation, it's on a soul level, and you change something permanently. Sometimes with realizations, we go back to the behavior, but on a revelation, we don't. In a revelation, our soul deeply resonates with the change, and we do it. So now let's get back to the spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is when your ego completely dissolves, and you have to let go of who you were. And usually that's a process that takes several years. And that's why spiritual awakenings, true spiritual awakenings, are truly rare. It's a process that gets stretched out over years and years. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think a spiritual awakening is, oh, I had this, this sensation, or I had this thing happen to me at church last night. I saw God or something, or I saw an angel. And they think that that's a spiritual awakening. That's not. That's probably a revelation. And so it will lead you to other places. So when I had my spiritual awakening, which tore everything out of my life, complete ego dissolution, I had to let go of who I was, lost loved ones, partnerships, businesses, money, real estate, home, lost everything, my health, sick with cancer. Throughout that whole thing, even though my three-dimensional life was reduced to ashes, I just kept ascending more and more into spirituality and finding joy and bliss in places I never thought I'd find it. And that's a true spiritual awakening. So I hope that explains things a little bit more for you guys. And the most important thing to understand is a spiritual awakening. It's different from a life crisis. Like, I too am a cancer survivor, and cancer was part of my spiritual awakening, but literally everything in my whole life collapsed. And I know a lot of people have that happen after an illness. And the difference between having a life crisis or having a series of things happen to us that may be egregious and having a spiritual awakening that's doing those things to us or causing those to have a healing crisis is that usually with a spiritual awakening, when all these things are going on, there's still a part of you that's like in love. Like, you just feel love around you. You have a positive attitude. You are, you have those dark nights of the soul when everything seems to be completely desperate, but you're not hopeless. For some reason, you keep having this higher vibrations coming into you, and you seem to know that you are on a path to something, and you start seeking doing things in a much different way. It's almost like through your human beingness, through your humanness, you morph another being and you birth another being. It's like, passing through the eye of a needle or a birth canal. And while you're doing it and while you're going through it, you're in love. You just feel love. You feel high. You feel like everything's going to work out. Synchronicity starts to really play a part in your life, where all of a sudden now you meet a lot of spiritual people. You meet the right person at the right time, whether that's a doctor or a therapist or a guru or just, somebody randomly that you only know for a short period of time, but completely enlightens you. So you're in all the crap of the 3D world, but you're not. Your psyche, your emotions, everything doesn't feel like that. That's a spiritual awakening, and you're going to a higher plane. And so I know for some of us that is definitely happening now, and we're going through these things, and it's all coming together for us. So what happens when we have energy shifts? Whether it's the epiphany that I describe, an epiphany is usually for you to change behavior. We get a download or a cognitive thought, or it's a revelation, which usually happens to snap us into someplace. We have these physical sensations in our body that happen. And I know, there's a lot of people on the chat right now, talking about cancer and things like that. And like I said, I too am a survivor. And what I do every day is I send the triumph of my wellness out to everyone in the world and all my sisters who are in the throes of disease. I do a monthly cancer circle, Reiki circle for Babylon breast cancer where I live. And I know a lot of the ladies, watch the show and everything, and we have good relationships. And that's really important, because part of undergoing a spiritual awakening and staying in that vibration of love is once you get to a certain level of purchase and you're, on a plateau on this mountain that you're climbing to get out of it all, the giving back becomes a natural thing. You can't not give back. You can't be part of a world where you just sustain yourself and don't give back love. And that's really the purpose of the spiritual awakening, is to put you in a vibration of higher love than you have ever been before. Unfortunately, because we're human, sometimes that means destroying our three-dimensional lives, the lives that we live that are fake, that we think are so important to our security, when in actuality they're all illusions. So the spiritual awakening comes in to kind of like a bowling ball with pins, knock down those illusions so that you're kind of hitting the floor. And in your humbleness and your humility, you have to find new things to fill the lane with. So that's really, in a nutshell, what it is. Maybe not such a nutshell. So I want to talk really quick before I go to cards about some of the physical feelings that you may have if you're undergoing either a spiritual awakening or just even an energy transference or an energy shift. There's a lot of enlightenment going on in the world right now. People are starting to think a lot differently than they used to. We're undergoing a tremendous amount of change in our cosmology, where the planets are astrologically, and in our consciousness levels. And as a result of that, our body has to process that energy, right? We're all energy. A lot of the guests that I've had on the show, from Laura Kobus with the Horus meditation to Phoenix Green with the Schumann resonance, we all talk about vibrational energy and how we fit into that. Even the new moons and the full moons and the eclipses bring electromagnetic energy into our bodies, and we process it a certain way. So all of this is creating a lot of force field in the world right now where we're having a lot of physical symptoms. So I want to go over a couple of those. And if you have anything online that you want to, come into, let me know what you want me to talk about if you have any kind of physical symptoms and things. And Mickey says, don't forget the guys. The reason why I say sisters is because I work with a breast cancer group that's all ladies. But of course, anyone who is in dis-ease or in any kind of detriment, I send the energy of that triumph. That's how I live. It's a bodhicitta-based philosophy. And that means that whenever you have a triumph over anything in your life, when you breathe in that triumph, you breathe it out and send it to the world for anyone who's in the same exact place, whether it's depression or financial or whatever it is that you have triumphed over in your life. You send the energy of that triumph to anyone who is exactly in that detriment, and you spread that all over the world. So the first thing I'm going to say, the most common symptom of energy transference or energy processing is when we start shivering or trembling, or we get the chills, right? People always say, oh my God, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. That's electromagnetic fields. You could be having a psychic experience. It could be the plasma in the room from the psychic experience, or it could just be your nerve endings and receptors are, feeling energy that you don't feel consciously. So a lot of times our bodies, which are filled with chakras, energy centers, feel things that we don't consciously feel. And that'll cause those tremblings or shivers. Learn to tune into them, to ask, what am I supposed to be hearing or seeing, or what is this showing me? And establish your own interpretations of those energy centers. It's nothing to be fearful of. A lot of times we assign negativity to our physical feelings, and that just adds to our anxiety. So don't assign negativity to it. Vertigo, huge. Right now, it's like so many people have vertigo. I happen to think 5G plays a role in this, but I'll get a bunch of emails and all kinds of things if I talk about that. So vertigo is huge. For anyone who's suffering vertigo right now and undergoing some kind of spiritual process, vertigo comes in when very high frequency energies are trying to assimilate with your physical body. When that happens, it's not uncommon for us to feel dizzy or off balance because we are bringing in new energy that offsets the old energy. And so we're being rebalanced. The inner ears will become very sensitive to that feeling, and you'll experience that vertigo. The other thing is feeling drawn to metaphysical things. I remember when I first started to open to energy, I always wanted every Saturday to go to metaphysical stores or find a group meditation or yoga or some kind of fire ceremony. I was obsessed with metaphysical things. That's okay, but remain open, but also remain discerning. A lot of times I see people who are new to the spiritual path taking on the identities and the beliefs of others. The whole purpose of the energy transference and the awakening is that you develop your own beliefs and what's authentic to you. Throbbing or other sensations in the top of the head, that's a very common one, and headaches, because your crown chakra, where you process energy, and your third eye, where you will see in your mind, are very active during times when you're having an ascension or an awakening. Buzzing in the ears, just like the vertigo, it plays on your ears because you're trying to, different frequencies are trying to be processed in your body. A lot of times you'll feel more empathy or more compassion. Your heart just feels open. I remember at one time I was dating someone with a who was undergoing an energy ascension. He was being transferred to a higher vibration, and I remember he used to cry all the time. He'd be like, "I'm really sorry. I don't even know why I'm crying. I'm just crying." Very, very common. Or feeling at peace with the things that you were always frightened of. All of a sudden something that was very dark to you and scary becomes something that you're really okay with and you're starting to accept and understand. That's also a really good sign that you're being awakened to a new perception in your life. And then, of course, heat, tingling sensation anywhere in the body. That's just the energy coming in and processing it. Your dreams will get really vivid, especially now when we've had the Neptune conjunction in Pisces. Huge time for dreaming. We're starting to move out of that energy a little bit. When we have the next full moon eclipse on the 15th of this month, we'll really kind of be away from that energy. But that's an energy of real, ethereal, dreamy. The dream state is extremely heavy right now. And buzzing all the time, Monica says, yeah, you're processing, that's your frequency. You know, it's almost like a tuning fork trying to find the right speed or the right octave. So the vivid dreams. Also, you're going to find, like I said, headaches, skin irritations sometimes. I remember I had this huge like rash on my face. My face was always itchy, and it would get worse when I meditated. It was just the way I was processing the energy. You also may feel like you have a virus or an infection. You may even run a low fever. Always get checked out by a medical doctor, of course. But it's not uncommon to have what a lot of us in the spiritual world call the spiritual flu. Your body sometimes will process energy that way, especially if you're undergoing a release, you know, some deep karma or some deep childhood inner wounds. You know, now you're accepting them, you're resolving them, and sometimes you'll start to get very sick or you'll have a spiritual flu, you know, congestion, cough, fever, you know, sometimes digestive problems, because your body's releasing the energy that you've kept for so long, and you're releasing that, and the body is now adjusting to a new frequency without those things in your processing. Insomnia also, a lot of times you'll find yourself awake, especially in that 3 o'clock, 3:30, 3:15 hour of the night. You're going to have increased sensitivity because you're going to feel the world's pain a little bit more. And sometimes you need to work with a mentor to process that. Depression, anxiety, and also you're going to start to see things for what they really are. Friends that you thought were the bomb, suddenly you see through them. You're like, this person isn't so great. Or maybe you even have a spiritual teacher that now all of a sudden you see that they really aren't sincere. Maybe your partnership in life isn't what you thought it was, and something is revealed to you to really show you who that person is. So you'll have a lot of truth come in when you're on that path of spirituality. Feeling disconnected from everyone. That's because your vibration is changing. So the people that you vibed with, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, you're not in that vibration anymore. So sometimes that means you have to send them love and be loving with them, but on a very different level. Maybe you're not as close with them anymore. Maybe your connections are developing to be different. Or maybe there are people that you never were close to before and now you are. So that'll be very common, because we find we attract what is in our frequency, what matches us. And your own personality also will change. You know, something that you always found abhorrent to you will become beautiful. Something that you struggled with all your life, like maybe you had a weight problem, suddenly now you don't. You are disciplined. You feel healthy. That's all part of your vibration changing. You may feel the need to purge, whether that's your diet or getting rid of toxic foods, toxic things in your home, or even cleaning out a space, you know, purging things, friends, people, all kinds of stuff. Like, this is really, you know, what happens. Monica, I think you're definitely going through a spiritual awakening. You might need to kind of do more grounding to get yourself more in the frequency, because it sounds like your energy is really being dragged into, or compelled into, I should say, into a really high vibe. And then, of course, a big part of that is your intuition is probably going to be very heightened. You're going to start to have psychic experiences. We all are psychic. No one is not psychic. We just close it off, don't develop it. So a lot of times during an energy or frequency elevation, you will find that all of a sudden you're having a psychic thing, or you're more intuitive. Like, you just know things that you never realized you knew before. And also sometimes you're going to start to get really angry. The betrayals that you've allowed in your life and the betrayals that you've done to yourself by not living up to your full potential become very heightened. And that's where the lesson of forgiveness comes in. We get angry so that we can learn the lesson of forgiveness and tolerance. And then, you know, as you go through it, different things are going to happen. You're going to find the fatigue turns into bliss and things like that. So I'm going to pull a couple of cards. And I think what I'm going to do, because we only have about 13 minutes or so left of the show, I think what I'm going to do is just pick a couple of people. And what I'd like to do is, at first, I'm going to pick some cards for world energy, because I just feel like right now we have so much energy in the world that is volatile. So I just want to see if we can find out by the cards, like, what exactly is going on in the world today. All right. And if anybody has anything they want to add about anything I said on the show tonight, I'd love to hear it from you. Okay, so I'm going to pick, they're telling me 3 tarot cards. Bobby's in here playing with some wires. He's like, don't blow my cover. It just shows how dedicated he is to making us look wonderful and making the show look better. How do you guys like all the new lighting in the studio? Do I look glamorous now? I think I do. Of course, I think I always look glamorous. I try and talk nicely to myself every day. You guys should make sure you're doing that. So I got 3 tarot cards on the table. And I'm going to tell a little story with these cards because that's how I read. I always feel the story. So the first card I picked was the Queen of Cups. And the Queen of Cups, to me, is a card of structure. I think this is representing the structure of the world, you know, our governments and our structures. We have a lot of energy right now fighting over energy. And I think that we all have to stay tuned to that. I'm not a big proponent of watching the news, but I think, you know, follow the story, because I think what's happening in the outer world, in our global economy, in our global markets, in our global places, is you're going to see the interpretation of energy to be very different. How do we process energy? What do we consider energy? Who gets to control energy? Should the governments control energy? Should it be free enterprise? Should it be private sector? And the Queen of Cups, I feel like, is coming in representing that emotion of energy and what energy is going to be used for and how it's going to be decentralized, centralized, or how it will be used. I have my own theory. I hope this doesn't go viral, but I have my own theory about why so many people were upset about Elon Musk purchasing Twitter. I think it has nothing to do really with Twitter. I think it's just that information is power. And Elon Musk is a person who is also trying to give freedom from energy, right? What does he build? He builds electric cars. He has a process to which, you know, the roof of the car can have a solar panel, so you don't have to plug it into an energy source that is controlled by a government sector or any kind of structure. So he's a dangerous person to the controllers in the world because he will free us from the control of energy. And you can see how energy is being used to control with Russia and Poland and Germany and Ukraine. So the new commerce and the new currency is energy and food and information. So that's how the governments control us. And the Queen of Cups is coming in for me, showing this is indicative of our emotions to do with what is energy and how is energy being used to control. Because then I have this beautiful 9 of Cups. And the 9 of Cups is abundance. And I really believe what you're going to see in the next few years is the control from structures and government go back to the people somewhat. And the people will start to control things, and it will be a lot healthier. And this is the card that symbolizes that abundance of the shift of energy. And we're all sitting on the beautiful 9 of Cups, which is abundance, really altruistic type of things, freedom. And then the third card I pulled was the Judgment card. The Judgment card is new beginnings. And if you really study this card is Archangel Gabriel blowing his trumpet with a clear message. And what is he doing? He's blowing it to these people who are unclothed, coming out of what is appearing to be a grave. But what that's a symbol of is rebirth, not death. And so we've got a complete rebirth of the global sector because this is a spread for a world energy reading. So to me, when I say world energy reading, I mean our personal energy. When I talk about energy in this reading, I'm talking about oil, gas, any kind of, coal, diesel, all those things. That's what's being used to control us, right? The economy in our country here in the United States is undergoing huge metamorphosis right now because of the price of gas and oil. So this spread is showing me that there is a timeline, I'm thinking 3 years, where you're going to see control start to go back to the people, and that's going to change all of our lives. So look and watch the news for a lot of things to do with how energy is processed, how energy, our natural resources, Taurus, is used to control, and how natural resources, how we find our freedom, and where we can give resource to each other in a global way. So that's what I'm getting for the globe. I'm going to pick a soul card to confirm this reading. Very interesting times we're in. And there's a reason why we were all born to be in this time. And that reason is in your personal chart in comparison and an overlay to what's going on in the world. So if anyone wants a private reading, you can give me a buzz, call, or find me on social media. I'd be glad to do that for you. Here you go. The card I just pulled randomly out of the deck. This beautiful card, and it looks like a person. I hope you can see this. I know sometimes the light glares on the card. It is a figure, a person, a light being, and it looks like they're just holding up the whole universe, this light of the world. And if I look at this, it really is almost like someone giving birth to the world energy. So that's a confirmation of the reading. So that's what it's all going to be about the next 3 to 5 years is energy, resources, how government structures change, and what really becomes the superpowers of what's controlling that. Really, really interesting stuff. So I'm going to go to the comments and see what we've got here. Marissa says she can relate to what we're saying. Ann Rothy says she learned a lot today. Good. And I learned a lot from all of you guys, too, I got to say. Joanne Papalardo, truth seeker. Yeah, I think we're all truth seekers. If you're watching and you're part of the Zenkuda Soul Space community, you are a truth seeker, right, Joanne? That is so true. And I always feel that sometimes I go into these shows, right, guys, and I have no idea what I'm going to say. Usually comes out I shouldn't say usually. Sometimes it comes out really profound, and sometimes it just comes out as silly stuff. But I always just, ask Spirit, right, my guides, just whatever I'm supposed to say tonight, let me do it, Every morning when I wake up, the prayer that I say when I do my body scan, I scan myself every morning to see if I'm holding any energy I shouldn't, and if I have some great energy I should expand on. And I just whisper before I even open my eyes, Spirit, please help me see what I'm supposed to see, hear what I'm supposed to hear, and know what I'm supposed to know today. And that's all we can ask for, right? We're all undergoing a lot of metamorphosis right now. So I'm going to pick a soul card for everybody in the Zenkuda community. Didn't get to do individual reads tonight, but if you want to be read on the show, please message me because I'm going to pick a name randomly to do a couple of card readings on the show next week, and that is what we will do on the 9th of May. And this card here is going to get picked for all of you. They're telling me to cut this deck. And this is the card. I feel like it has... look at this beautiful card. It is a card completely in lavender. You guys all know I work in the purple light. And that's my jam. And this beautiful card is all of us being enlightened. Look at that beautiful head with all of this enlightenment. I do see a little bit of, distress coming out of the eye here, sadness. And I think that's our compassion for everything that's happening in the world right now. But remember, the reason why we're given all that compassion is simply so that we can transmute it into love for each other, love for helping each other. How can we bring the resources that we have personally out into the world to create a better place for everyone? And I'm going to leave the show on that note tonight. You can find me on Zenkuda Official on Instagram, Zenkuda on Facebook, and of course Zenkuda on YouTube, where you'll see this video and over 100 different videos banked. And stay tuned because in the next couple of months, my book is going to be published. I know you ladies will love to hear about that because it is a lot about breast cancer, but it's a lot of other stuff too. So you guys are going to love it as well. And I'll see you right back here in the Soul Space next Monday at 7. Thank you all for joining my beautiful Zenkuda community. This is a place where we're all really ambitious about our spirituality and Zen. So have a great week. Drop in, stop in, give me a note, give me a post. Let me know how you guys are all doing, okay? Thanks so much. Good night, everybody.